Hello. So I figured before you take your quiz today that we could go over some more of the problems. So this is a quiz on everything that we've been doing lately on factoring. So I just wanted to go over like basically one of each type that will be on your quiz. I would suggest that you do these along with me, or you could even try them first, like on your own, and then watch the video to see how you did. So number one is a trinomial where a is 1. So for something like this, you can just simply think about the numbers where that multiply to 24 and add to negative 11. Now, since we want them to multiply to a negative number and multiply to a positive number and add to a negative number, that means that both of them are going to be negative. It's the only way to multiply to a positive and add to a negative. So you'd look on your factor chart for factors of 24 that would add to 11. It ends up being negative 3 and negative 8 because negative 3 times 8 is 24, negative 3 plus 8 is negative 11. And so since we were only asked to factor, that's it. That is our answer. Okay, let's take a look at the next one, number 2. So number 2, our A is bigger than 1. So typically you would have to do box or grouping for something like this. However, hopefully that you notice that they'll have a GCF. There's a GCF of 2 here that we could take out. So you'd first want to take out a 2. And so 2 times what gives us 2x squared, x squared. 2 times what gives us negative 10. 2 times what gives us negative 72. So you're basically just dividing everything by 2. Now that we have that, notice that there's a 1 in the front of that trinomial. So now we can go to our 2 binomials. That 2 that we took out stays in the front. So we have x and x. And now we want numbers that multiply to negative 36 and add to negative 5. So you want to look at factors of 36. We need to multiply to a negative 36, we want 1 to be positive and 1 to be negative, because that's the only way to multiply to a negative. And so it ends up being negative 9 and positive 4. And again, since we were only asked to factor, that is our answer. Okay, number 3. Now, number 3, again, A is bigger than 1, just like in number 2, except notice that there is not a GCF. So therefore, we have to do box or grouping. I'm going to do it both ways just so you can see each one down out again, even though I think most of you do box, but just in case. So the first thing that you always do is you multiply the first and the last. 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. Then you think of numbers that multiply to 18 but add to positive 3. So it's going to end up being 6 and negative 3. If you do grouping, I'm going to do that over here. So for grouping, you want to rewrite it, replacing the middle term with 6x plus negative 3x. So it's going to be 2x squared plus 6x minus 3x minus 9. Then you group the first 2 and the last 2, take out the GCF of each grouping. So the GCF for 2x squared and 6x is 2x, and so inside it would be x plus 3. And then negative 3x and negative 9, since this is negative here, we have to take out a negative 3 for the GCF. X plus 3. Notice that x plus 3 and x plus 3 match, which is what we want. So the answer would be 2x minus 3 and x plus 3. Okay, and then over here I'm going to do the same one but using box. So for box, the first step is still the same, remember. You multiply the first and the last. Think about numbers that multiply to that number, add to the middle number. Your first term goes here in the top left. Your last term goes in the bottom right. The 6x and the negative 3x go here and here. Remember, where you put them doesn't quite matter. These two are interchangeable. Either spot would work. Once you have your box set up, you think about GCFs of each column and each row. So you want the GCF of these two is going to go up on the top. So 2x squared and 3x just have an x in common. And the sign of it depends on the box that's closest to it. So this box here. So that's why it's positive. Now 6x and negative 9 have a 3 in common. Again, positive because the 6 is positive. Now we're going to do these two. 2x squared and 6x would be 2x. Negative 3x and negative 9, these two next would be 3. Since this is negative and it's closest to where I'm writing it, it's negative 3. Notice that these two are here in that part of the answer, and then x plus 3 is here. So again, your answer is 2x minus 3, x plus 3. And so since we were just asked to factor, that's it. That's our answer, and we are done. Now on the bottom is actually solving. So solving is a little bit different. You have to move everything to one side, factor, and then solve. So figure out what x values would make the equation true. So in number 4, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring the 40 over to the left-hand side. We need to bring everything to the same side. And then you want to rewrite it in standard form. X squared plus 6x minus 40 equals 0. Next, we need to factor. So since the leading coefficient is 1, since a is 1, we just do regular factoring and think about numbers that multiply to negative 40 and add to 6. So multiply to negative 40 and add to 6 is going to be, let's see, I know that 10 and 4 would add to 6 if I made the 4 negative. So it's going to be x plus 10, x minus 4. And so now what we would do is solve. So to solve, you want to think about what would make each of these binomials 0. So you can just set up your little equations. X plus 10 equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0. And then you solve each equation separately. So I'm going to subtract 10 here. So it's going to be x equals negative 10. Add 4 here. So I'm going to have x equals 4. And that's number 4. Number 5, I need to bring everything to the same side. So I'm going to bring the 9x over to the left. So I have 3x squared minus 9x minus 30. And I'm putting the 9x first, the negative 9x first, because it needs to be in standard form. So in order to factor, it needs to be in that form. So now we're going to factor. I notice that a is bigger than 1. So typically that would be box or grouping. But hopefully we notice that all 3 of these terms are divisible by 3. So I can take out a 3 for a GCF. So that's essentially just dividing everything by 3. Okay, next we can factor because now we have a trinomial where a is 1. So we want to think about numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to negative 3. Since it's multiplying to a negative, one's going to be negative, one's going to be positive. Remember that your bigger factor matches the sign of the middle term. So my bigger factor is going to be negative. So let's see, 5 and 2, right? So that's going to be negative 5 and positive 2 would multiply to negative 10 and add to negative 3. Once you get that, you set each factor equal to 0 and solve. I'm going to add 5 here. And then subtract 2. And those are our 2 answers. Okay, 2 more. Number 6. I first noticed that everything is already on the same side, which is great. That's what we want. So I don't have to do any rearranging. So next I'm going to multiply the first and the last. 5 times 8 is 40. So I want numbers that multiply to, and again, sorry, let me back up a second. I'm doing this because our leading coefficient, our a, is bigger than 1. So this means I have to do box or grouping. So you multiply the first and last to get 40. We want numbers that multiply to 40 and add to negative 14. So that's going to be negative 10 and negative 4. So if you're doing grouping, you're going to rewrite it 5x squared minus 10x minus 4x plus 8 equals 0. Then we group the first 2 and the last 2. We take out the GCF of each grouping. So 5x squared and negative 10x is going to be 5x. Negative 4x plus 8, we have to take out a negative 4 because that's negative the first term. X minus 2. And then we write our answer. 5x minus 4. Remember, it's these 2. And then the repeated one. Okay, so we're almost done. We still just have to solve. So to solve, we're going to take each factor and set equal to 0. So 5x minus 4 equals 0. Add 4. So then we have 5x equals 4. Divide by 5. So x equals 4/5. And you can just leave it as a fraction. That's totally fine. And then the other one is x minus 2 equals 0. Add 2 to both sides. X equals 2. Now, if you're going to do a box, it's the same idea. I'll just do it real quick over here just to show you that it matches. We have our box. 5x squared goes in the top left, 8 goes in the bottom right, negative 10x and negative 4x go here and here. So then GCFs, 5x squared and negative 4x is x, negative 10x and 8 is negative 2. 5x squared and negative 10x is 5x, negative 4x and 8 is negative 4. So see 5x minus 4, x minus 2. And you get the same answers. Okay, that's when a is bigger than 1. And then number 7, I just did one where it's already solved for you. Well, not solved, it's already factored for you, and you just have to solve. So you're going to take each of these and set them equal to 0. So for the left one, I'm going to add 3 to both sides, divide by 4. X plus 7, I'm going to subtract 7. X equals negative 7. That's it. And then you're done. So on your quiz today, there are 8 problems, and you are choosing to do any 6 of them. So you get to choose which 6 you complete. And that's it. So please let me know if you have any questions. Shoot me an email. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. All right. Have a great day.